Hi, this is Lori Milroy, Washington, D.C. correspondent for Kurdistan 24. We're speaking with Minister Safeen Dizayee about his trip to Washington, D.C. Minister Dizayee, have you heard from American officials their concern about the resurgence of the Islamic State?
Absolutely. I think they are well informed, and we underlined the fact that ISIS is no longer a sleeper cell. They are active cells. They have active cells both in Syria and in Iraq. They're believed to be 15 to 20,000 terrorist elements roaming around these territories between Iraq and Syria. And particularly the area which is of most concern to all of us, and it should be of concern to Iraqis, Americans, and the entire world, for that matter, is the gap or the no man's land between Syria and Iranian border as a result of the events of 2017 after Kirkuk, where Peshmergas were withdrawing from some areas. And at that time, the regular Iraqi army did not fill in the gap. So this gap of 20, 25 kilometers in some places is there. ISIS has been able to regroup itself and to be active, and almost on a daily basis they are conducting operations and attacks and terrorist attacks against outposts and against communities in that particular locality. And of course across the border in Syria, the picture doesn't look as great as one would like to see.
So when the United States, and let me say this clearly, turned a blind eye to the attack on Kirkuk and other disputed territories that Qasem Soleimani orchestrated, this has now caused security problems for both the Kurdistan region and for Iraq. Is that correct?
The events of then, of course, it came after the referendum which was held in Kurdistan. And I think it was right for the people of Kurdistan to express their views, but unfortunately it was responded by particularly the government of Baghdad at the time and Dr. Abadi with a very strong response and military moves and confrontations took place between Peshmergas and regular Iraqi army, and territories were lost. And embargo was imposed on Kurdistan, aerial embargo, land embargo. So unfortunately, it was not an experience that we were expecting, which have resulted with negative repercussions that we are facing today.
It would seem so. Did the United States talk to you about continuing its support for the Peshmerga in order to fight ISIS?
Absolutely. As you know, there is a good deal of cooperation right now. The coalition led by the United States and a number of other countries who are working on a very comprehensive plan of reform within the Ministry of Peshmerga Affairs to modernize it and to be a fighting force that would be able to protect Kurdistan and also to fight against any prospect of re-emergence of ISIS or any other organization in future. So that cooperation is ongoing, and we have thanked them for that. But our expectation is, in the light of developments, in the light of the demands there should be more to be done.
Yes, more to be done. Should we be expecting any other senior officials from the Kurdistan region to be visiting Washington in the near future?
It is on the table that there will be, yes, some meetings in future. And our representation in Washington and with their colleagues at various departments are working on that. Hopefully there will be high-level delegations in future.
Well, we look forward to that. You were also on Capitol Hill and had a lot of meetings with representatives and senators. Could you tell us about them, how they went?
I must say I was taken back by the level of support and sympathy that has been, I felt and heard about it. So we thank them for that, and obviously we try to enlighten them of the events as first-hand both in Iraqi Kurdistan, in Iraq as a whole, and across the border in Syria. They were very cordial and very receptive, listening to us very carefully, and I think we managed to pass our message across.
I know Senator Blackburn recently spoke about Kurdish issues on Capitol Hill, and she said support for the Kurds was a bipartisan issue despite all the splits and fights in Washington. That was your experience, bipartisan support for the Kurds?
That's what we have experienced. I mean, from the experience that we have, perhaps it has been quite some time before, before that on such an issue, there is a good degree of unanimity on the Kurdish issue.
And you also had you mentioned the dealings with the Chaldean business community in Detroit. You also had some other economic meetings with the World Bank and the IMF, is that right?
Indeed. Obviously, they're all working through Baghdad, and we had quite an open discussion with both of those organizations, and discuss about certain ideas how Iraq as a whole can be helped, but in parallel to that, Kurdistan should not be forgotten.
They all agree, Kurdistan. Well, Kurdistan is more prosperous, generally speaking, than Iraq as a whole, isn't it?
It has its own reasons, for sure, and we are deeply saddened by what's happening in the rest of Iraq, because at the end of the day, it's the civilians who get caught up in all of this. And I do hope that soon the government would be able to regain control and would be able to do what it should be doing, services and equal opportunities to every citizen in Iraq. And we in the KRG have tried to help out, and we will continue to help out as much as we can.
Thank you very much, Minister Dizayee, for speaking with us. We have learned a lot from your conversation, and thank you all for being with us to talk with Minister Dizayee about his trip to Washington.